This is a true story, inspired by the real-life journey of America's first self-made female millionaire. In the late 19th century, inside a poor black neighborhood in America, a struggling woman had just finished a free hair treatment. While the owner wasn't looking, she secretly stole 20 boxes of hair growth cream. Then she headed straight to the town's busiest marketplace and began passionately telling her tragic life story. Unexpectedly, her words moved people, and all 20 boxes sold out in no time. But instead of keeping the money, she went back to the shop owner, Addie, and handed over every cent, hoping to prove her talent in sales. Yet Addie was furious over what she saw as near theft. So when Walker asked to become a sales agent, Addie rejected her with a cruel, racist insult. "Even in your best suit, you look like you just stepped off a plantation." But Addie had no idea. Her refusal would create her biggest rival and spark a million-dollar empire. Walker had once been a washerwoman at the very bottom of society. She worked tirelessly, but no matter how hard she tried, poverty never left her side. Years of contact with harsh laundry chemicals made her hair fall out. To make things worse, her husband, who had just been released from prison, didn't comfort her. Instead, he mocked her, saying, "You look like a mangy dog." Then he left her. Just when Walker thought her life couldn't get any darker, a woman walked through her door and changed everything. From then on, Walker washed Addie's clothes, and in return, Addie treated her hair for free. After 2 years of care, Walker's hair grew back thick and healthy. Around that time, she also met a kind man who became her new husband. Meanwhile, the miracle results of Addie's cream made Walker realize there was a business opportunity. She asked Addie if she could help sell the product, but Addie chose a light-skinned girl with a sweet face, someone who knew nothing about the cream, over Walker, who knew the product inside out. Even though Walker had brought Addie many new customers and sold 20 more boxes herself, Addie still rejected her for being too ugly and too dark. Those words cut deep, straight into Walker's heart. Seeing his wife in pain, her husband comforted and encouraged her. That support became her source of courage. Walker started studying every book she could find about hair care and combining it with what she'd learned from Addie's formula. She created her own hair growth cream. It smelled even softer and fresher than Addie's. Since she wasn't sure about the formula's balance, she decided to test it on her daughter. After countless experiments, Walker finally made a product she was proud of. Its remarkable results brought hope to many women and a steady stream of loyal customers. But as her success grew, so did the trouble. Addie, afraid Walker had copied her, stormed into her shop furious. She threatened to have Walker thrown in jail if she found any sign of imitation. She sniffed Walker's cream. The scent was clearly different. But Addie didn't stop. Her words were sharp and cruel. She vowed to crush Walker's business and make her go back to being a lowly washerwoman. But those threats only fueled Walker's determination. She saw a glimpse of light and refused to back down. Because her cream worked so well, orders started pouring in even from Indianapolis. One of her friend's sisters-in-law ordered a big batch, and that gave Walker the confidence to expand. She decided to move her family to Indianapolis, where there was a large black community, even though her husband strongly disagreed. To him, it wasn't a smart move, but Walker was firm. In the end, Jack gave in. Right before they left, her daughter shocked everyone. She suddenly married a poor musician. Walker was stunned. She couldn't accept a lazy son-in-law with no ambition. On his first day at work, the young man read gossip magazines instead of helping. Walker couldn't stand it, but rather than kick him out, she told him to at least sweep the floor. Watching her daughter depend so much on a man with no drive, Walker spoke from experience. She told her daughter to focus on her own future, that no one could be trusted but yourself. But her daughter, blinded by love, didn't understand. Still, one thing did make Walker proud. Her daughter was a natural at sales. With her husband's help, Walker's company was soon up and running. But when he proposed flashy ads with fake claims, Walker refused. She insisted on using her true story, because real stories touch people. When the grand opening finally arrived, they stood by the door, full of excitement, but not a single customer showed up. Instead of giving up, Walker studied the methods of top businessmen to improve her strategy. Her husband, on the other hand, grew more frustrated. Facing financial strain, Jack told her she should go back to doing laundry. That broke Walker's heart. They eventually agreed. If things didn't improve in 2 weeks, they'd shut it all down and try something safer. But deep inside, Walker knew one thing for sure. She would never go back to being a washerwoman. To boost her sales, Walker started handing out flyers every single day, promoting her product to as many people as she could. But it was during the Great Depression, a time when most people could barely afford food and clothing, let alone hair care. Even though she faced rejection after rejection, Walker never gave up. She knew that in a new and unfamiliar market, only smart marketing could open doors. So she went to the local marketplace where women gathered in crowds. Standing tall, she called out, "Want a better station in life? Need to make more money? Come on, let me show you how." Her words struck a chord with every housewife there. Curious eyes turned toward her. Then she began sharing her own story, how her hair loss had led to her husband abandoning her, and how she had been turned away from job after job. Her raw honesty moved everyone. At the perfect moment, she offered to give free hair treatments. That gesture won over the entire crowd. In just minutes, every single jar of her hair growth cream was sold out. Soon, Walker's home became a bustling hair care center, filled with clients eager to try her products. But as business flourished, she realized that running a beauty salon from her house wouldn't last forever. She needed to expand, to open a factory and build a real production line. But first, she'd need a good lawyer. Through her husband's connections, she met a lawyer who, despite his talent, was forced to work as a porter at the train station because of racial discrimination. Walker admired his intelligence and offered him a real opportunity. And soon, he joined her growing team. But just as her business was taking off, Addie suddenly appeared, traveling miles to open her own beauty salon on the busiest street in town. Determined to crush Walker, Addie pulled every dirty trick she could. Though she herself was of African descent, she despised darker-skinned black people. One Sunday morning, she strutted into a black church wearing a face full of disgust. Before the pastor could even speak, she marched straight to the front and loudly announced her salon's grand opening, right in front of the entire congregation. She even mocked Walker, sneering that her so-called beauty parlor was nothing more than a kitchen workshop. At that moment, Walker felt her anger rise. She rushed into the restroom, trying to calm herself, but Addie's cruel words echoed in her head. In the mirror, she saw her old, insecure self staring back. In a flash of emotion, she slammed her fist into the mirror. The sharp pain brought her clarity and a bold idea. She ran back out before the crowd dispersed and made a shocking announcement. All products were now buy one, get one free. Instantly, orders poured in like a tidal wave. Everyone worked overtime mixing and packing, but the demand was overwhelming. Then, disaster struck. Her careless son-in-law, sneaking out for a smoke, ignored the open flame in the kitchen and caused a massive explosion. Within seconds, all their products, materials, and even the house itself went up in flames. Afterward, he still had the nerve to claim it wasn't his fault, that it was just an accident. Watching everything she'd built burn to ashes broke Walker's heart. But before she could recover, Addie showed up outside her ruined studio, offering free treatments to her customers, blatantly stealing them right in front of her eyes. Listening to Addie's fake sympathy, Walker's sadness vanished, replaced by pure determination. That fire reignited her fighting spirit. Now, she was more determined than ever to build her own factory. With her husband and lawyer's help, Walker organized a meeting with the town's wealthiest investors. She promised them a 20% return, far above market rates, hoping it would win their support. But without a guarantor, the investors backed out, calling it too risky. Just when everyone thought it was over, a poster gave Walker a new idea. She decided to find a respected local black leader to endorse her project. She wrote letters, sent telegrams, but none were answered. Still, she refused to give up. Thanks to her lawyer's wife, Walker finally got tickets to the upcoming Booker T. Washington conference. To be safe, her lawyer also prepared a backup plan. One of the wealthy morticians they'd met seemed genuinely interested in investing. If she could convince him, the others would likely follow. So, Walker paid the mortician a visit. But not long after, she returned home pale and shaken. Her father-in-law noticed immediately and pressed her to explain. Through tears, Walker confessed. That man had tried to take advantage of her during their meeting. Thankfully, she had brought her pistol and managed to escape. Walker didn't know how to tell her husband, but her father-in-law stopped her. He knew if Jack found out, he'd go after the man, and it would destroy both their business and their marriage. Yet the worst was still to come. Her lazy son-in-law, who dreamed only of opening his own hotel and cutting ties with the family, secretly visited Addie's salon while pretending to shop for paint. Under Addie's flattery and a few glasses of wine, he revealed everything. He told her that Walker was trying to get Booker T. Washington to endorse her business. And so, when Madam Walker was eagerly preparing to meet Mr. Booker T. Washington, she never imagined that he would call out Addie's name instead, inviting her on stage and praising her in front of every businessman in the room. That moment crushed Walker completely. With no other choice, she turned her hopes toward Mrs. Washington. To build a connection, she offered to do her hair for free. But when she sincerely asked her to persuade her husband to endorse her, Mrs. Washington flatly refused, saying she never interfered in her husband's business. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Walker noticed Mr. Washington heading to the restroom. She quickly urged her husband to seize the chance and invite him over for dinner. 2 minutes later, her husband returned with good news. Booker T. Washington had agreed to join them that evening. Walker's heart filled with hope again. Determined to make a good impression, she locked herself in her room and practiced her speech over and over, preparing every word she would say to win his support. But when the evening came, Mr. Washington never showed up. Confused, Walker asked her husband what had happened. That's when she learned the awful truth. Her husband had accidentally locked the restroom door, which made Washington think he was being attacked. He even pulled a weapon on him. The agreement he had mentioned earlier was nothing but an excuse to get away. Out of options, Walker asked her lawyer to call in a favor and reach out again. But Washington had been so frightened he outright refused. With only a week left before the factory lease expired, and knowing the failure was caused by her husband's blunder, Walker's anger and frustration finally exploded. The party ended abruptly. Heartbroken, Walker sat alone, eating in silence to ease the pain. But little did she know, her top saleswoman had already been bought off by Addie. While Walker buried herself in work and neglected her husband, that same saleswoman was secretly tearing their marriage apart. Years of insecurity and neglect had already built a wall between them, and now it was starting to crumble. Still focused on her dream, Walker suddenly had a new idea when she saw the hair tonic she had prepared for Mrs. Washington. She immediately called and invited her over for a private hair treatment. But when she once again asked for help convincing her husband, the answer was the same, a firm rejection. So Walker spoke from the heart. She pointed out the sad truth about every woman in the room. Despite their education and intelligence, many even smarter than their husbands, they were still trapped in the shadows of men, afraid to step into the light. She even revealed how she had almost been assaulted by a mortician while seeking investment, showing just how hard life was for black women. Her honesty quietly changed Mrs. Washington's perception of her. Soon after, Walker attended Booker T. Washington's public speech. Ignoring her husband's attempts to stop her, she boldly walked onto the stage and directly asked him to vouch for her. Then she launched into a fiery speech, explaining how her business could create real jobs for black women and giving a voice to those who had long been silenced behind their husbands. The crowd was stunned. On stage, Washington praised her confidence, but in private, he told others her behavior was rude and improper. And when Walker mentioned she planned to pay her female workers more than men, he became furious. He scolded her harshly and told her flat out that he would never endorse a black woman like her. The rejection hit her hard, but Walker refused to give up. She set her sights on their house. But when she asked her husband to mortgage it for a loan, he instantly refused. Walker had always insisted that Madam C.J. Walker's hair company belonged to her alone, not as joint property, and that had deeply wounded his pride. As a man living under his wife's shadow, it was something he could never accept. Their marriage finally broke beyond repair. Then, out of nowhere, came a surprise. When Walker opened her door one day, she found Mrs. Washington standing there, with a group of well-dressed ladies. Even without her husband's endorsement, these women were ready to invest in her. But while Walker was celebrating with her new investors, a storm was brewing behind her back. Her son-in-law, tempted by money, had joined Addie's side and agreed to steal the hair tonic formula. Walker had no idea that her own family had already been bought off. With the new investment, her factory was built quickly. Under her leadership, she assembled an elite sales team. But as the company grew, her husband's old-fashioned mindset clashed hard with her ambition. Meanwhile, Addie's business was on the verge of collapse. Desperate to win, she decided to fight dirty, seducing Walker's top saleswoman Dora, who then took advantage of Walker's absence in Los Angeles to get close to Jack. At the same time, Dora secretly convinced 4 of Walker's best sales agents to defect to Addie's company with the promise of high pay. But it didn't stop there. Walker's son-in-law broke into her office while no one was home and stole the entire ingredient list for her hair formula. So when Walker returned from New York, having just secured a deal to get her products into the country's biggest drugstore chain, her lawyer delivered devastating news. Addie had poached 5 of her top salespeople. To fix the damage, Walker decided to confront them herself. But when she arrived at Dora's house, she was shocked to find her husband there, half-dressed. And then came the insult. He claimed he was only there to convince Dora to come back. Faced with his betrayal, Walker's heart shattered completely. Even if she still loved him, she could never forgive him. What she didn't know was that this scandal would soon destroy the biggest business deal of her life and stop her company from entering the national market. That day, while Madam Walker was showing investors from a New York drugstore chain around her factory, her drunken husband suddenly burst in, shouting and claiming that the factory belonged to him. Because of the ownership dispute, the visitors quickly ended the tour, saying they had to catch a train. Fortunately, Walker's father-in-law later learned from a friend who worked at Addie's salon that her son-in-law had been spending a lot of time with Addie and was planning to steal Walker's secret hair formula. Thanks to the timely discovery, they caught him before the formula was leaked. Soon after, Walker's daughter divorced him. After suffering so much loss and betrayal, Walker was completely exhausted. Seeing her mother's sorrow, her daughter comforted her and suggested they go to church to find some peace. But when they arrived, they saw Walker's once most trusted employee standing right behind Addie. At that moment, all Walker felt was deep disappointment and helplessness. Yet, with her daughter's encouragement, she found the strength to keep going. She decided to send her daughter to New York to continue her education and expand their beauty business into Harlem. She looked at her daughter and said, "You and me, we gotta work work harder, be smarter, and get rich. From now on, I'm putting my face on all the ads in the tins." With her mother's full support, her daughter soon opened a chain store in New York. One day, after sobering up, Jack came to sincerely apologize for his mistakes. But after everything he'd done, betraying her in both business and marriage, Walker couldn't forgive him. So when Jack pulled out a ring, she firmly refused and kicked him out of the house. Later, Walker moved to New York herself and bought a house right next door to oil tycoon Rockefeller. But fate had other plans. Just when everything seemed to be going well, tragedy struck. Walker suddenly collapsed at a party. After an examination, doctors confirmed she had an incurable disease. Her kidneys were failing day by day. Faced with this cruel truth, she chose to keep it a secret from her family. Her behavior after leaving the hospital left her daughter puzzled. Despite her illness, Walker insisted on organizing a massive rally, gathering more than 10,000 of her employees in the heart of a wealthy white neighborhood. Even her lawyer, Ransom, thought it was impossible. But at a time when racial tension between black and white people was at its peak, Walker refused to back down. Her daughter was even more confused when her mother started talking about wanting a grandchild. Still, she didn't disappoint her. The daughter managed the company well and even secured a partnership with the largest national drugstore chain. They were impressed with Walker's reputation and immediately agreed to cooperate. But when Walker began preparing for the company's first big convention, things took an unexpected turn. The sales agents protested. They were afraid that once the company partnered with the drugstore, they would all lose their jobs. So Walker decided to put the plan on hold. One day, while out for a walk, she ran into her white neighbor, Rockefeller. After hearing about her dilemma, he offered some advice. A true entrepreneur can't let anyone hold them back. The smart move is to fire them all. But that went against everything Walker believed in. Her mission had always been to lift up black women, not leave them behind. His words made her realize what she truly stood for. So, in front of everyone, Walker made her decision. She publicly announced that she would cancel the deal with the drugstore chain. Perhaps it was because she knew her time was running out. But when she saw her daughter reluctantly go on arranged dates, Walker gave up her dream of seeing a grandchild. She realized it was better to free her daughter from the expectations and burdens she had placed on her. Fortunately, her daughter later adopted a child who would go on to inherit her legacy. Through the platform Walker built, countless black women found independence and changed their destinies. As a philanthropist and patron of the arts, Walker generously donated to black colleges, social programs, and cultural institutions. She became the first self-made African-American female millionaire in American history, earning a place in the Guinness World Records. This story is based on true events. Though Walker was born into poverty and hardship, she never complained. She rose from being a laundress to becoming the head of a major company and left an indelible mark on America's business history. Madam C.J. Walker became the first self-made female millionaire in the United States.